Have you ever had bad news, but you just don't know how to properly deliver that bad news to someone? We're going to talk about that today. Hi, I'm Patrick Bedevi, your host of Valuetainment Weekly. So, how to deliver bad news? You see, as an entrepreneur, whether we like it or not, bad news is always going to happen, whether a software is not being designed on time or you didn't deliver on that sale, whatever it may be. Bad news is part of your business. And delivering bad news is something you need to learn how to do, because if you don't, it leads to delaying a time bomb that may happen later on. So let's go through a few different steps with how to deliver bad news. Number one, first thing about bad news. If you can find a way to solve the problem before it gets to the source, do it. So even the bad news never actually happens because you solve the problem. Number two, consult advisors about how to handle that bad news immediately. Don't take your time and say next week, tomorrow, whatever it may be. As quickly as possible, consult your advisors about the bad news. Three, nobody likes surprises with bad news. If something's going to happen with bad news, let your team know a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, 6 months in advance. Just like companies say, hey, in the next 6 months, there's going to be layoffs. They don't come and say, here's what's happening. When they do it that way, it leads to issues, resentment. Tell people in advance that here's what's happening with bad news. Here's 4. Always deliver bad news early. There is no benefit from delaying a bad news, from having to be told to somebody. Deliver it as soon as you can to that individual. CEOs especially like to hear bad news early on so they can find a way to solve it. Point number 5, take responsibility. If it was your fault, say it was your fault. One of the things that annoys CEOs or entrepreneurs or leaders or anything is when somebody is not willing to take responsibility. A person who wins is where they are because they take responsibility. Leaders like it when a person comes in and says, hey, guess what? I messed up. It was my fault. It was nobody else's fault. But here's what I think we can do about this. So deliver it and take responsibility on your own. Point number 6, there's always a silver lining in any bad news or problem that comes up. So come up and say, let me tell you the bad news. Here's what took place. It was my fault. But here's what I think that we can learn from this. This is what happened. Like a coach will say, we lost the championship. Well, let me tell you something. How many teams make it out here? We learned an experience. We can come back next year strong. We can do this. Hey, here's what happened here. We lost this account, but we learned that this doesn't work with clients like this. The next time we come to a client, we need to take this approach. Point number 7 is deliver bad news with solutions. So listen, here's what happened. This is what took place. I take responsibility. We learned that this kind of approach doesn't work, but here's what I think we can do with this client. I think if we were to have our executive call this person instead of myself to just kind of do an assessment with them and let them know that we appreciate them taking the time, maybe we can get them to be willing to have a third meeting with us. Give a solution to whatever bad news you may have. And last but not least, whatever the solution you gave, it is on you to follow through with the solution for your CEO, your leader, your entrepreneur, your teammates, whoever that works with you, to increase their beliefs, to know that every time there's bad news, every time there's a problem, every time there's a challenge, you always come through with a solution and you always follow through with the solutions and you get them solved. That's my message of the week to you, and please be sure to subscribe to this channel and comment on the bottom. You want to go outside? Have you ever had bad news but you just don't know how to Have you ever had bad news but you've never really